Welcome to Awesome Chapter, the show where we explore some of the world's most inspiring and influential books. Today, we are taking a really necessary deep dive into a concept that has become just absolutely crucial for surviving and thriving in the modern information economy.
That's right. We are unpacking Deep Work, written by the computer scientist, academic, and author Cal Newport. And look, this is more than just another self-help book. It's a detailed economic and psychological argument for fundamentally changing how we approach our jobs.
How we approach our output, our career, pretty much everything.
Exactly.
And the central idea we're focusing on is that the ability to concentrate, intensely without distraction on a really demanding task is nothing less than the superpower of the 21st century. You might assume that everyone in knowledge work is already focused, but we're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so showing you exactly why this skill is incredibly rare.
And yet absolutely essential for achieving elite success today. We'll be distilling the core arguments, drawing on sources from, all over.
Right, like the extreme lengths historical figures took to protect their concentration.
Yeah, like Carl Jung's secret retreat. And then we'll get into the terrifying statistics on how knowledge workers spend nearly 30% of their time on email alone.
Wow.
We will give you the practical formulas, the neurological explanations, and the specific rules you can actually implement to master this skill.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, just to make sure we're all on the same page. When Newport uses the term, what is deep work and what's its opposite?
So deep work refers to professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that truly push your cognitive capabilities to their absolute limit.
So it's like peak performance for your brain.
That's a great way to put it. These are the efforts that generate new value, that improve your skill set, and critically are hard for other people or even AI to replicate.
Okay, so it's high leverage, complex, difficult stuff, the things that actually drive breakthroughs.
Exactly. And the counterpart, which tragically consumes the majority of our working hours, is shallow work. These are, non-cognitively demanding logistical style tasks, almost always performed while you're distracted.
So we're talking about constant email checking, endless status meetings, routine admin chores, just managing the inbox, basically.
That's it. They tend not to create much lasting value and are extremely easy for almost anyone to replicate or automate.
That distinction immediately raises the stakes. If we spend most of our time on easily replicable tasks, we're essentially reducing our own economic value.
You really are.
But this idea of intentional isolation, it isn't new, is it? The book grounds this concept in history, and the starting point is Carl Jung back in the 1920s.
Yes, with his famous Bullingen Tower. The story of Jung building this retreat near Lake Zurich is the perfect physical illustration of the commitment that depth requires.
Look, what did he do?
In 1922, he began constructing this stone house he eventually named the Tower. This was not a vacation home. It was architecturally sparse, built entirely by hand, and was fundamentally a private, isolated space.
So he was serious about this.
Oh, yeah. He literally kept the key and strictly forbade anyone from entering without his permission.
It sounds like a psychological fortress of solitude. He wasn't retreating to, relax. He was retreating to think.
Precisely. And this came at a really critical time for him. He had just published Psychological Types in 1921, which established the foundations of analytical psychology.
Right, the field that directly challenged his former mentor, Sigmund Freud.
Exactly. So to sustain this new school of thought, to write the big, important works that would define his career, he needed continuous, unbroken concentration.
Which is busy city life in Zurich just didn't allow for.
Yeah.
All the lectures and consulting.
No, it was impossible. So the withdrawal wasn't an escape from his professional life. It was a radical commitment to its advancement.
That's a huge distinction.
It was a massive sacrifice of time, energy, and money. He had to scale back on his clinical work, this huge physical grand gesture, decades before the term deep work even existed. It shows that influential figures have always understood this.
They knew that unbroken concentration was essential to do work that lasts.
We see this pattern everywhere. Mark Twain writing in his isolated shed, Woody Allen with his manual typewriter.
And Bill Gates with those famous Think Weeks, right, where he just completely disconnects.
Yes. The common thread is the radical, almost aggressive protection of focus.
So let's bring this into the modern world. If we accept that depth is crucial, why is it so incredibly valuable now? The book starts with what it calls the problem of fragmented attention.
And the statistics here are genuinely unsettling. The rise of all these network tools, Email, Slack, social media has just completely splintered the knowledge worker's day.
So what's the data say?
A massive 2012 McKinsey study found that knowledge workers spend over 60% of their entire work week on electronic communication and internet searching.
60%.
60%. And if you drill down, nearly 30% of their working time is dedicated just to reading and answering email.
That's almost a full day every week just on email. It's an attention black hole.
And this fragmentation. It isn't benign. It's not easily reversible. The journalist Nicholas Carr, when he wrote The Shallows, described how constant web surfing was literally chipping away at his capacity for concentration.
He had to physically move, right?
Yeah.
To a cabin or something.
He did. He had to completely disconnect just to get back the mental capacity to finish his book. Habitual shallowness permanently reduces your cognitive capacity for depth. You are literally training your brain to need constant novelty.
That makes cultivating deep work not just a productivity hack, but a kind of cognitive defense mechanism.
Yeah.
So if that's the problem, what are the core economic reasons why it's so indispensable now?
Okay, there are two big ones. The first is the ability to learn complex things quickly. The modern economy is defined by complex systems that change incredibly fast.
Like new computer languages, machine learning, digital analytics tools.
All of it. If you can't focus intensely, you just can't master these things quickly enough to stay economically relevant. Deep work is the engine of rapid skill acquisition.
So if you can't focus, you fall behind at the speed of technology.
Absolutely. The second reason is elite production. The digital revolution has dramatically magnified the reward for really high-quality work because your potential market is limitless.
So if you build an amazing product, it can reach millions instantly.
But the flip side is that the internet severely punishes mediocre work because it's so easy to find a better, cheaper, or free alternative online. Success today demands producing the absolute best stuff, which, by its nature, requires depth.
To make this real, the story of Jason Ben is a perfect example. He went from being paid for shallow work to completely transforming his economic value through enforced depth.
Yeah, Ben was a financial consultant, and his job was basically manipulating data in huge Excel reports. He had what Newport calls his Excel epiphany when he realized a simple macro could automate a 6-hour process he was paid to do every day.
That must have been a terrifying moment, realizing a simple script could do your job.
It was a direct confrontation with his own replicability. He was being paid $40,000 a year for something a computer could do, so he quit.
A huge move.
A huge move. He decided to learn computer programming, a hard, modern skill. But when he sat down to study, he immediately hit a wall. The wall of distraction.
The habit was too strong.
He admitted that in his old job, he spent a staggering 98% of my time just surfing the web and checking email. His mind was conditioned for shallowness.
So what was his solution? It was pretty extreme, as I remember.
It was the modern equivalent of Young's Tower, almost absurdly simple and severe. He literally locked myself in a room with no computer, just textbooks, note cards, and a highlighter.
Wow. Just completely disconnected.
Completely. He forced himself into a disconnected state to build that concentration muscle, clocking 5 or more hours a day, just absorbing complex programming concepts.
That is incredible commitment. What was the payoff?
After just 2 months of this, he entered Dev Boot Camp, which is a notoriously difficult training program. One graduate called it the hardest thing I've ever done.
And he did well.
He didn't just do well. He graduated as the top student. His salary immediately jumped from $40,000 to $100,000 at a San Francisco tech startup.
So his capacity for deep work made him instantly elite. It's a direct proof of the economic power of focus.
It is, and it leads us right to the underlying mechanics of productivity, which Newport summarizes with a simple formula. High-quality work produced equals time spent times intensity of focus.
Okay, so it's not just about putting in the hours, it's about the quality of those hours.
Exactly. This formula explains why people like Adam Grant, the youngest full professor at Wharton, are so prolific. He doesn't necessarily work more hours than his peers. He maximizes the intensity by batching his work.
Stacking all this teaching into one semester.
Right. He teaches in the fall so he can dedicate the entire spring and summer to research, often scheduling 3 or 4 day isolation periods just for writing.
By working in those intense, uninterrupted pulses, he gets more done in 2 days than a distracted worker might get done in 2 weeks.
And the key psychological mechanism he's using is reducing what's called attention residue.
Attention residue. Okay, what's that?
It's a concept from Professor Sophie Leroy. She found that when you switch from task A to task B, a residue of your attention remains stuck on task A, especially if it was unfinished.
Oh, you can feel that. That quick 2-second glance at an email about an unfinished project, even if you don't respond, part of your brain is still chewing on it.
That's it exactly. Leroy's research is devastating for the typical multitasker. Every quick check of your inbox fragments your performance. Working in a constant state of semi-distraction is potentially ruinous.
So Grant's isolation minimizes this residue, ensuring that when he starts writing, 100% of his mind is on writing.
Exactly. And if we look even deeper, there's a powerful neurological explanation for why this intensity is so critical, linking deep work directly to deliberate practice.
From the work of K. Anders Ericsson.
Right. His work confirms that expert performance comes from deliberate practice, which requires intense focus and immediate feedback. And the neurological foundation for this is myelin.
Myelin, the fatty tissue that insulates our neurons.
Correct. When we concentrate intensely on practicing a specific skill, we're forcing the relevant brain circuit, that network of neurons, to fire repeatedly and precisely.
And that focus firing triggers the growth of new myelin around those neurons.
Which acts like high-speed shielding, allowing the electrical impulses to travel faster and cleaner. Newport summarizes it very clearly. To be great at something is to be well myelinated.
So intense concentration isn't just a psychological trick. It's the physical, biological catalyst for skill growth and mastery. The more intense the focus, the faster you learn.
That's the bottom line.
This brings us to the central paradox then. If deep work is this powerful economic superpower that lets you learn fast and produce elite results, why on earth is it so rare? Why do modern companies seem to actively fight against it?
This is where Newport really flips the script. He shows that corporate culture often values visibility over actual output. And there are several huge business trends that actively sabotage depth.
The most obvious one being the physical environment. The open office.
The open office, yes, designed for serendipitous collaboration.
That's the buzzword you always hear. Dorsey at Square, Zuckerberg's 10-acre open floor plan at Facebook.
The intention might seem good, but the actual cost is massive distraction. Cognitive experiments show that even if you think you're tuning it out, your brain responds to background distractions, especially human speech. It just ruins your ability to concentrate.
So your brain is constantly diverting energy just to filter the noise.
Constantly. And then beyond the physical space, you have the relentless connectivity culture.
The expectation that you're always on.
Exactly. Professor Leslie Perlow found that professionals are spending 20 to 25 hours a week outside the office just monitoring email.
It's a part-time job.
It is, and it's because of this pervasive expectation of quick responses, often within an hour. This eliminates any possibility of true mental rest and forces this perpetual low-intensity engagement. You never truly get to go deep.
And even serious producers are pushed into this shallow world through social media.
Oh, absolutely. The New York Times encourages its bureau chief to tweet, forcing serious journalists whose job demands deep reading and complex writing to interrupt that for the frothy back and forth of Twitter.
It's a tragedy, really, trading highly valuable, durable work for something that's gone in 5 minutes.
It is. And these trends thrive because of a few deeply ingrained organizational flaws. The first one is what Newport calls the metric black hole.
The metric black hole, what does he mean by that?
The economist Thomas Piketty noted that in knowledge work, it's objectively difficult to measure individual contributions to a firm's output.
Right. Unlike a factory, how do you measure the value of one brilliant strategy document versus 50 hours of managing emails?
You can't, really. And if the value of depth is hard to quantify, then irrational outcomes like tolerating really poor work habits can thrive. No one can definitively prove they're hurting the bottom line.
And because we lack those clear metrics, we get the principle of least resistance.
Yes. When things are ambiguous, people just default to what's easiest, even if it provides minimum value. Running your day from your inbox is just easier than thoughtful, complex planning.
We see this with the classic thoughts email. Takes the sender 2 seconds, but it shifts the entire burden of thinking onto the recipient.
Exactly. It's the path of least resistance for the sender, and it creates shallow work for everyone else.
Another consequence of this metric black hole is equating busyness as a proxy for productivity.
Right. Since the output of knowledge work is ambiguous, visible busyness becomes the only substitute for real productivity.
We saw this with Marissa Mayer at Yahoo, didn't we? Checking server logs to see if people were logged in enough.
That's the classic example. She equated visibility with output, which is a profound misunderstanding of how elite knowledge work happens.
The irony being that the truly elite producers, like Adam Grant, are the opposite of being publicly busy. They isolate themselves to maximize their output.
If Grant had worked for Mayer's Yahoo, he might have been fired for not being visible enough. It just shows how flawed that mindset is.
The final cultural barrier is what you could call the cult of the internet, or technopoly.
Yeah, drawing on the theorist Neil Postman, he warned about a culture where technology itself becomes an ideology. The assumption that if it's high-tech, then it's good. Case closed.
So companies push distracting behaviors like tweeting, not because they're empirically better.
But because the alternative, which is deep, quiet work, is invisible and therefore irrelevant in a culture obsessed with visible, high-frequency digital engagement.
That unchallenged assumption that if you're not digitally busy, you're not working, is what makes deep work so rare.
But here's the massive upside for you, the individual learner. This corporate myopia means that depth will become increasingly rare, and therefore exponentially more valuable for the few individuals who choose to cultivate it. It's a huge market inefficiency you can exploit.
Before we explore the practical strategies for integrating this economic superpower into your own life, the essential rules for execution, we want to take a moment to support Awesome Chapter.
If you're finding this exploration of deep work useful and valuable for your own learning and career advancement, please take a moment to support the show. Liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment helps us share these powerful concepts with more learners like you and ensures you don't miss our next deep dive. Thank you for being a part of the show.
Okay, we've established the enormous economic value of deep work. Now let's explore the personal payoff. Newport argues that depth isn't just about money. It's also intrinsically meaningful and essential for a good life.
He offers three major arguments for this, starting with a neurological perspective from Winifred Gallagher, a cancer survivor who had a profound realization about attention.
Gallagher's insight was that who you are, what you think, feel, and do, what you love, is the sum of what you focus on. Our brain literally constructs our reality based on what we pay attention to.
And that has profound implications. By dedicating significant time to deep, important endeavors, you instill a sense of gravity and importance into your world. Your consciousness is ordered around meaningful challenges.
But if you focus on constant shallow concerns, the inbox, social media, your mind constructs a working life dominated by triviality and frustration.
Right. The old saying, the idle mind is the devil's workshop. When you lose focus, your mind defaults to fixing on what's wrong or trivial. Deep work hijacks your attention for something better.
Gallagher concluded that living the focused life, where your attention is on worthy challenges, is fundamentally the best kind there is.
Then there's the psychological argument, centered on the concept of flow, from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Right, flow. That state where you're so immersed in an activity that you lose track of time.
Exactly. His research confirmed that flow, when your mind or body is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile, is when people report peak happiness.
And the counterintuitive finding was that people were often happier at work than during their free time.
Because jobs offer built-in goals and challenges that facilitate flow, whereas unstructured leisure can lead to boredom or anxiety.
So deep work is an activity perfectly suited to generate flow. The feeling of going deep is rewarding in itself.
It is. And finally, there's the philosophical argument, rooted in craftsmanship.
Like the example of the master blacksmith Rick Furr.
Yes. He finds immense meaning in recreating ancient Viking swords, a task requiring such concentration that a small slip can ruin dozens of hours of work. His motivation is the satisfaction of manifesting oneself concretely.
And this sense of craftsmanship isn't just for physical trades. It extends to knowledge work, too.
Of course. The coding prodigy Santiago Gonzalez described writing beautiful code as being much like as if you were writing a poem. It's the intrinsic reward of creating something difficult and perfect.
So cultivating craftsmanship requires deep work. It transforms a job from a draining obligation into something deeply satisfying.
A gateway to a rich, meaningful, and productive life.
All right, let's move from the why to the how. Rule number 1 is deceptively simple. Work deeply. But this is where most people fail, right? Because they rely on good intentions.
And good intentions immediately run into the willpower problem. Research by Roy Baumeister confirms that willpower is finite. It's like a battery that depletes with use.
So if you try to switch from an afternoon of web browsing to a really hard task, you're trying to do it on an empty battery. You're set up to fail.
You are. The solution is to move beyond willpower and implement structured routines and rituals that minimize the mental energy needed to transition into deep work.
We need to build habits.
We do. And Newport provides 4 major philosophies for scheduling deep work to fit different lives. The first and most extreme is the monastic approach.
This is basically eliminating shallow obligations entirely, like the computer scientist Donald Knuth, who just stopped using email.
Or the novelist Neil Stephenson, who avoids all social media because he knows his productivity drops spectacularly when his time is fragmented.
But let's be realistic, that sounds completely impossible for 99% of people with a regular job.
It's a fair point, but you can take the principle of it. You can't eliminate all meetings, but you can say no to every non-essential one. You can be a selective monk.
I like that. A selective monk. Okay, what's next?
Next is the bimodal philosophy. This is more realistic. You divide your time clearly into extended, deep periods and open, shallow periods.
Like Carl Jung, splitting his time between the isolated tower and his busy clinic.
Exactly. Or Adam Grant, batching all his teaching into one semester to free up the other for pure research. You don't eliminate shallowness, you quarantine it.
Okay, that feels more doable. What's the third one?
The rhythmic philosophy. This is all about consistency. Committing to the same deep work hours every single day.
Like the doctoral candidate who worked from 5:00 to 7:30 a.m. every morning before his family woke up.
Right. The consistency turns the action into a habit, which overcomes those daily willpower hurdles.
And the last one is the journalistic approach, which sounds the hardest.
It is. This is fitting deep work into free stretches wherever they pop up. Walter Isaacson could supposedly start writing his book in short, intense bursts during a family vacation.
That requires an incredible ability to switch focus instantly. Probably not for beginners.
Not at all. It's for people who have already mastered deep work using one of the other methods.
Regardless of the philosophy, Newport emphasizes ritualizing the start of a session.
And even using what he calls grand gestures. Routines matter immensely because they save willpower. Charles Darwin had a strict daily schedule. He ignored inspiration and relied on his system.
As the saying goes, waiting for inspiration to strike is a terrible, terrible plan.
It is. And grand gestures are these psychological tricks to boost a task's perceived importance.
Like J.K. Rowling checking into a 5-star hotel suite to finish Deathly Hallows, the environment signals to her brain, this is important.
Exactly. Or the entrepreneur Peter Shankman, who couldn't focus on his manuscript, so he booked a $4,000 round-trip flight to Tokyo.
Just to write during the 30 hours of forced isolation on the plane.
The point isn't the extravagance, it's the commitment. These gestures push your goal to such a high priority that they unlock the mental resources you need.
Okay, rule number 2 shifts from scheduling to internal training. Embrace boredom. The core problem, as you said, is that our brains are being rewired by constant stimulation.
That's the reality from Clifford Nass's research. He found that constant attention switching online creates these habits of mind that make concentration impossible. He called these people suckers for irrelevancy.
So every time you feel a tiny bit of boredom waiting in line at a red light, and you immediately relieve it with your phone, you're training your brain against deep work.
You're training it to need constant novelty. That's why the recommended strategy is so radical. You have to schedule breaks from focus, not breaks for distraction.
So the idea of an internet Sabbath once a week doesn't work.
It's ineffective because you're still gorging on high-frequency stimulation the other 6 days. Instead, you schedule specific short internet blocks for distraction, say 20 minutes at 10 a.m. and 20 minutes at 3 p.m.
And the rest of the time is scheduled as offline blocks.
And resisting distraction during those offline blocks becomes a conscious concentration calisthenics session. You're practicing the skill of sustained focus.
What if you feel that urge to go online outside of a block?
You enforce a small 5-minute gap before you allow yourself to do it. That little gap is crucial because it separates the craving from the reward, and it helps the brain decouple that addictive loop.
This disciplined approach also applies to downtime, right? Like when you're walking or driving.
Yes, this is where you practice productive meditation.
So using periods when you're physically occupied but mentally free to focus on a single, well-defined professional problem.
Exactly. You could be outlining an article or working through a tricky bit of code in your mind. It's not just about solving the problem, it's a core training exercise.
Because you're forcing your attention to return to that single problem over and over again.
You're strengthening your distraction resisting muscles, so it doesn't just produce ideas, it sharpens your general ability to concentrate during your official deep work blocks. You're constantly training the system.
Okay, this brings us to rule 3. Given the destructive power of connectivity, there has to be a systematic way to manage the technology itself.
Right, and this rule is about being strategic and skeptical of network tools rather than just passively accepting them.
This is hard for a lot of people because it challenges that unspoken rule of modern work.
Hmm.
You must be perpetually accessible.
It does. The principle here is you should only adopt a tool if its positive impact on your deep work substantially outweighs its negative impact on fragmentation.
So how do you apply that skeptical filter to something like Twitter or Instagram, which are designed to be addictive?
Newport says you have to reject the any benefit approach, which is what most people use.
The any benefit approach, meaning you justify using a tool if it provides any small benefit, like I get some industry news from Twitter.
Right, but that ignores the enormous cost in fractured attention. The alternative is the law of the vital few, or the Pareto principle.
So identify the few tools that provide the vast majority of your value and ruthlessly cut everything else.
Precisely. To do this, he suggests a 30-day digital declutter. You temporarily quit all non-essential network tools for 1 month.
The idea being, you see if the world actually stops spinning without them, which it won't.
And you get to reevaluate their true necessity when you're free from the addictive habit. Then, if you bring a tool back, it has to meet strict criteria.
Like, does it support a deep work activity? And is it the absolute best tool for that purpose?
And do you have a process for using it that limits its negative effects, like only checking email once at noon? It's all about intentionality.
You're switching from being a passive recipient of digital noise to the strategic master of your own communication.
Which is absolutely vital for draining the shallows.
Which is the final rule: drain the shallows. The goal here is to ruthlessly minimize shallow work to free up time for deep effort. The story from the software company 37 Signals is the perfect example.
Right, 37 Signals, which is now Basecamp. They experimented by shortening their work week to 4 days, and they found that employees accomplished the exact same amount of high-quality work.
So the reduction in hours just squeezed the fat out of the week.
It forced a scarcity mindset. They couldn't afford to waste time on trivial meetings or endless emails. It proved that shallow work just expands to fill the time you give it.
So the key to draining it is constant, thoughtful awareness of how you use your time, starting with scheduling every minute of your day.
And again, this sounds restrictive, but the point isn't rigid adherence. It's about forcing thoughtfulness. By blocking out your day, you force yourself to ask, what is the most effective thing I can be doing right now?
And if the schedule gets disrupted, you immediately revise the rest of the plan. It's about maintaining that intention.
Right. And a critical strategy for deciding what to cut is to quantify the depth of every activity.
Using the smart college graduate thought experiment.
Exactly. You ask yourself, how long, in months, would it take to train a smart recent college grad to do this task?
It's a great metric for shallowness because it's based on replicability. Editing an academic paper might take 50 months of training. That's deep.
Whereas building a quarterly sales PowerPoint might take 2 months. That's shallow. It's easy to replicate and doesn't leverage your expertise.
Once you can quantify shallowness, you can set a shallow work budget. Ask yourself or your boss what percentage of my time should be shallow.
For most non-entry-level roles, 30 to 50% is a reasonable cap. And having that budget gives you the cover to say no to shallow commitments.
And the most powerful tool for all of this is fixed schedule productivity. Fixing a firm goal of not working past a certain time, say 5:30 p.m., and working backward.
This forces that crucial scarcity mindset. Every obligation becomes suspect. And a professor at Harvard, Radhika Nagpal, used this to earn tenure despite working fewer hours.
But once that fixed endpoint hits, you need a strict shutdown ritual.
Yes, to neutralize the Zeigarnik effect, the tendency for incomplete tasks to dominate our attention.
Right, just stopping work at 5:30 leaves your mind still churning on unresolved problems.
So the ritual is simple. You review incomplete tasks, make a specific plan for them for the next day, and then you verbally declare shutdown complete.
It's the commitment to a specific plan that frees up your cognitive resources, telling your brain the task is secured. It allows you to genuinely rest and restore your attention for the next day.
When you work hard. And when you're done, you are truly done.
So, to wrap up, we've established that deep work, this ability to focus intensely without distraction, is incredibly valuable for learning and achieving elite output. And yet, it's surprisingly rare because of the gravitational pull of shallow work, which is enabled by a lack of clear metrics and a culture that prefers busyness.
We saw that depth isn't just an economic lever. It's also essential for a meaningful life. It generates flow, it maximizes positive attention, and it provides a powerful sense of craftsmanship.
And the path forward requires intentional structure, whether that's bimodal isolation, rhythmic scheduling, or just ruthlessly draining the shallow tasks that dilute our efforts.
The ultimate truth about the power of deep work, I think, is best shown by the founding of Microsoft.
Right, when Bill Gates and Paul Allen wrote Basic for the Altair in 8 weeks, Gates worked with such staggering intensity, a prodigious feat of concentration.
He would often just collapse asleep on his keyboard, wake up a few moments later, and pick up exactly where he left off.
That is the pragmatic truth. Deep work isn't a moral statement. It's a practical professional skill that enables the creation of valuable things. That obsessive focus allowed Gates to start a billion-dollar industry in less than a semester.
If you are willing to struggle, to deploy your mind to its fullest capacity to create things that truly matter, you will find that depth generates a life rich with productivity and profound meaning.
Tune in next time as we delve into another book that changes the way we approach success and fulfillment.
And if you found this analysis of deep work useful, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment to support Awesome Chapter. It really helps and ensures you don't miss our next deep dive.